People think you get used to the smell. You don't. You just learn what it means faster. Copper, rot, wet dog left in a ditch too long. That was the air around the train yard, and that's how I knew the reports weren't just panic and urban legend crap. Something was feeding out here. Something that didn't care if the prey screamed. 12 people hit by this thing. 3 dead. The rest hospitalized. One guy lost most of his face. All of them said the same word while they bled out on stretchers. Crawler. I parked 2 streets over. Engine off. Lights off. Rain did me a favor, soft on the pavement, hiding my steps. I checked the suppressor on my SMG, racked the bolt slow, felt the round seat. All right, I muttered. Let's not make this a long night. The train yard looked like the world had just stopped trying. Rusted freight cars, weeds growing through tracks, broken lamps flickering like they were thinking about dying. Perfect place for something that didn't want to be seen. Most predators leave prints. This thing left hand marks. Long, greasy smears high up on boxcars. Finger streaks in grime where something climbed instead of walked. I followed them between the rows of dead steel. Then I heard it. Metal ticking, a slow click. Click, click. Like knuckles cracking back into place. I raised the gun. Yeah, I said quietly. I hear you too. A shape slid off the side of a freight car, not dropped. Slid. Like gravity didn't fully apply. It crouched when it hit the ground. Limbs too long. Spine bending in waves under tight gray skin. Its ribs showed like it was shrink-wrapped over a skeleton. Eyes caught light that wasn't there. Its mouth already half open. I didn't wait. Thup, 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 thup. Suppressed bursts. Center mass. I saw meat jump off its torso, but it didn't fall. It twisted sideways, arms slapping down, and took off on all fours so fast my brain lagged half a second behind my eyes. Of course you're fast, I groaned, taking chase. Gravel sprayed under my boots. It vaulted a rail car in one smooth, boneless motion. I had to climb like a normal damn human, nearly ate it on the slick ladder. I got to the top just in time to see its back muscles ripple as it bounded toward the street. I fired again. One round caught its shoulder. It screamed, not loud, sharp, like glass snapping in your ear. It veered, hit a brick wall, and ran straight up it. "Show off, freak!" I shouted, sending a burst of bullets following it. It disappeared over the roof edge. I cut through an access alley, lungs burning, keeping the sound of swinging chains and rattling metal in my head like a compass. I burst into a back street. I couldn't see it, couldn't hear it. That's when I saw the loading dock. It was the only thing open. A back alley bar. Neon beer sign buzzing round front. Music thumping through brick. Laughing inside. I stopped. Blood smeared the metal door frame. Long finger streaks. It went in. Fantastic, I sighed. Crowded hunting ground. Love that. I slipped through the dock entrance, gun up. The music dulled as soon as the door shut behind me. Fryer grease, stale beer. And under it, fresh blood, metallic and warm. Something shifted above me. A drop hit the concrete by my boot. Another landed on my shoulder. I didn't look up right away. Sometimes they pounce when you snap your head. Yeah, I said, calm as I could fake. I know. I tilted my chin. It was on the rafters, wrapped around pipes, upside down like a spider that learned the wrong lessons from evolution. Blood dripped off its chin. That grin stretched too wide, jaw hanging like it was already picturing my bones. Its mouth opened further. Then it let go, and dropped straight at me. It hit me like a sack of wet cement. We went down hard. My back slammed concrete, air blasting out of my lungs. Before I could roll, its weight pinned my chest and its head snapped down toward my neck. I turned, and its teeth hit my shoulder instead. A loud clack rang out as its jaw closed on the armor plate under my jacket. I felt the pressure, the force of it trying to punch through, but the bite didn't sink in. Just vibration and pain. Wrong snack, I grunted, jamming the SMG up between us and pulling the trigger. The muzzle was practically in its gut. Rounds tore through its abdomen, hot fluid splashing across my hands and chest. It shrieked in my face, breath like a corpse in summer. Then its weight vanished, not because it moved, because something yanked it off me. The crawler flew sideways like it had been hit by a car and smashed through a wooden door at the back of the loading area in an explosion of splinters. I rolled onto my side, gasping, bringing the gun up, and saw the guy who'd done it. Huge, bald, neck thicker than my thigh, covered in black and red tattoos that crawled over his scalp and down into the collar of a cut-off leather vest. Boots, chains, biker patches. He looked like a bouncer built in a war factory. He turned his head toward me. Eyes caught the light. Not reflection. Glow. Oh, you've got to be kidding me. Before I could raise the gun, one hand clamped around the front of my jacket and hauled me upright like I weighed nothing. "Easy, Hunter," he rumbled. Voice deep, calm, amused. Yeah, definitely not human. He dragged me through the broken doorway. The other room was bigger. Old storage turned private bar space. Pool table shoved aside, crates, kegs, busted furniture, and in the middle of it, the crawler, cornered. 3 men stood around it in a loose circle, all different builds, different clothes. One in a suit jacket, one in a hoodie, one with long hair tied back. But they all had the same stillness, same eyes. Vampires. The crawler spun in place, hissing, slashing at the air, gut hanging open and leaking. It looked scared now. Animal scared. One of the vampires laughed. "Look at it," he said. "Ugly little thing." It lunged, but didn't get far. The suited one moved so fast my eyes barely tracked it. He caught the crawler mid-leap, slammed it into the concrete, and drove a hand into its chest like he was reaching into a bag. The thing screamed. The biker vamp took my SMG, my sidearm, my knife, all gone in seconds. Efficient, professional. Then he shoved me into a chair at the bar against the wall. "Sit," he said. I considered not, then I looked at the room again. 4 of them. Me, bruised, winded, half my ammo gone, and sat. They didn't even look at me after that. All their attention went back to the crawler. It tried to crawl away, dragging itself with one arm. One of them kicked it back into the center like a toy. Another tore a chunk out of its shoulder just to hear it scream. They weren't hunting. They were playing. I rested my forearms on the bar, watching, breathing slow, shoulder throbbing under the armor where the bite had hit. Great, I muttered to myself. Walk into a cryptid hunt, find a vampire social club. The biker glanced at me, smirk tugging one corner of his mouth. "Don't worry," he said. "You brought the entertainment." Behind him, the crawler's screaming turned wet, then stopped. The screaming stopped, but the room didn't get quieter. Wet sounds carried for a bit. Tearing. Laughter. A low, satisfied kind of noise like dogs finishing a meal. I didn't look away. You learn more watching predators when they forget you're there. Eventually, what was left of the crawler hit the floor in pieces. One of them nudged something with his boot. Might have been a spine. Might have just been what was left of its middle. Hard to tell. "All right," the suited one said, brushing his hands together like he'd just finished a job at a workbench. "That's done." They all turned toward me at once. Yeah, not unsettling at all. The biker pushed off the wall and came over, grabbing a bottle from behind the bar like he owned the place. No labels. Brown liquid. Probably not something with a tax stamp. He set a glass in front of me. "Drink," he said. "I'm working," I replied. He raised an eyebrow. The others watched, with quiet curiosity. "You're breathing," he said. "That means you're off duty." Fair point, annoyingly. He poured, but didn't break eye contact. I glanced at the room again. My guns were gone. 4 vampires, and me with a bruised shoulder and fading adrenaline. I picked up the glass. "Cheers," I muttered, and knocked it back. It burned like paint thinner and bad decisions. They relaxed after that. Not friendly, just satisfied, like a situation had been handled. The long-haired one leaned against the bar beside me. You boys with the company have been sniffing around too much lately. I didn't answer. The biker did. We don't want attention. No raids, no fire teams, no holy water sprinkler systems. I snorted. You think I control that? You're a message, the suited one said calmly. Messages get delivered. So what's the message? The biker leaned closer, voice low and almost conversational. You didn't see us. You killed the crawler. Problem solved. We stay off the radar. You keep your bosses pointed somewhere else. I rolled my sore shoulder. And if I don't? He smiled. Not wide, just enough to show he had options. But you will, he said. I went to answer. Some smart remark about how I don't take deals with corpses that talk. But my tongue felt thick. That was new. The room tilted slightly. I blinked hard. You drug me? Relax, the long-haired one said. You're safe. We said so. My arms felt heavy, like I'd run 10 miles uphill. The bar light smeared at the edges. Just a nap, the biker added. You wake up with your monster. Story nice and clean. I tried to stand. Didn't happen. The last thing I saw was the crawler's remains on the floor, and 4 shapes watching me go under, calm as night nurses. Cold woke me up, not gentle. Dark steel under my back. Early morning gray sky overhead. Gulls somewhere nearby. My head felt stuffed with cotton and regret. I sat up fast. I was alone. The loading dock door was shut, padlocked. Graffiti over old paint. No neon sign, no music, no bar. Like it had never been open. Beside me lay the crawler's body, mostly intact now, or arranged. Limbs reattached in the wrong directions, torso split, head twisted too far, like someone had put it back together just enough to be recognizable. My gun sat in a neat pile next to me, mags unloaded but stacked. I stood slowly, shoulder aching, and looked at the quiet street. No witnesses, no blood trail, no vampire clubhouse, just me, and a dead cryptid. I sighed. Great, I muttered. Paperwork's gonna suck. But as I slung my SMG and called it in, one thought stuck harder than the hangover fog in my brain. They hadn't been scared of me. They'd been scared of who I worked for. And that meant this wasn't over. Not even close.
You ever take a job you know is stupid? Not dangerous, not cursed, just stupid. That was this one. Village on Kauai calls me in. Chickens gone overnight. Pigs gone too. Crops wrecked. Little footprints everywhere like someone dropped a sack of angry toddlers. They say the word real quiet. Menahun. I say, cool. Love folklore. You want a bedtime story or pest control? They don't laugh. Should have been my first clue. I track 'em easy. Too easy. Broken branches everywhere, fruit cores, little handprints in mud. And they're fast. Not human fast. Squirrel with a criminal record fast. I caught up with a group as the trees thickened. Whole way in, I can hear 'em above me, running, snickering. Something throws a rock at my head. I look up and go, you miss on purpose or are you just too small? Jungle gets real thick, real quiet, real quick. No birds, no wind. Then the smell hits me. Wet dog and old meat. I think, great. Now it's a normal monster. I can work with normal. I crawl up this ridge, look down into a clearing, and I see it. Tree City. Platforms, rope bridges, nets, and bones tied to branches. Like if Ewoks got into ritual sacrifice. Dozens of the little hairy freaks were running around. 2 feet tall, long arms, big eyes, teeth like they're always thinking about biting. I count maybe 30, then I start doing math in my head about ammunition. Suddenly the ground shakes, and I think, oh good, bonus problem. I look down. There's only an ogre asleep against a boulder at the base of the trees. Big. Like, uses bears as pillows big. I whisper, well that explains the smell. I figure that's their god, or their guard dog. But nope. One of the little dudes climbs down a vine, sneaks over, drops a rock on the ogre's head. Thunk. I just stare. The ogre snorts, half wakes, swings a hand, misses, and the little gremlin scrambles back up screeching like it just won a game show. Then another one pokes it with a stick. They're not worshipping it, they're bullying it. It slowly stands. It can't reach the platforms. It jumps, grabs bark, slips. They throw stuff at it, screaming. One moons it. I'm watching a 20-foot monster get harassed by forest chihuahuas, and I realize something important. The village didn't hire me to hunt them. They hired me because the only thing keeping those things in that tree is that ogre, and it is having a very bad week. So I'm laying there thinking, what do I do? Option A, kill the ogre. Then 30 crackhead Ewoks pour into the countryside forever. Option B, kill 30 tree goblins under their home turf, while they throw rocks, knives, and possibly each other at me. Then God knows what the big guy's going to do. Option C, walk away and become a fisherman. I almost chose option C. Then the ogre wakes up all the way, roars. The little ones start raining junk on it, rocks, bones, a dead chicken. Ogre gets mad and charges the tree, and that's when I realize something worse. If that tree goes down, 30 of those things hit the ground at once. And guess who's the only snack nearby? So yeah, that's how I ended up fighting an ogre, to save it from getting overthrown by a civilization of violent carpet samples. But that part, that's where the story gets stupid. So there I am, belly in the mud, watching history's dumbest ecosystem. Little tree goblins versus an ogre with anger issues. Ogre finally snaps. It lets out this roar that shakes leaves loose, hauls itself up, and just slams both fists into the tree trunk. Whole village wobbles, bridges snap, platforms tilt, and suddenly, it rains screaming furballs. 5 of the little psychos drop out of the canopy like angry coconuts. One hits the ground wrong and gets back up, limping. Another one tries to bolt. The ogre moves fast for something shaped like a fridge with legs. Snatch. Grabs him mid-scramble. Little guy is kicking, biting, making this awful shrieking noise like a blender full of raccoons. Ogre just opens its mouth and bites down. Crunch. I whisper, well, that escalated. Everything goes quiet for half a second. Then every single menahoon in that tree freezes. They all turn, and the sound they make, not scared, furious. They start pouring down vines and trunks, not running away, advancing. 30 tiny murder monks, spreading out, circling it. Ogre roars back, pounding its chest, trying to look big. Problem is, it already is big. That trick's done. They start moving in waves. Dart in, slash, jump back. One stabs its ankle with a sharpened bone. Another smacks its ear with a rock. One full-on launches itself at its face. I'm watching a giant get death by piranha'd on land, and then the ogre turns and sees me. Eye contact. You ever lock eyes with something that big and know you just got promoted to Plan B? Yeah, it points at me like, you, new problem. I sigh. Cool. Of course. Why not? It charges, trees snapping, ground shaking. All the little goblins scatter out of its way. I pop up, fire 1 round, not to kill it, just to make it mad at the right angle. Hey, Shrek, over here! It swings. I duck behind a root wall. Its fist smashes bark into splinters. While it's focused on me, the little psychos swarm its back, climbing it like a jungle gym from hell. I grab a flash charge off my belt. Not magic, not fancy, just bright and loud. I wait for it to open its mouth to roar. I toss it in. Bang, light, sound. Ogre staggers, blinded, roaring, trips over the boulder it was leaning on earlier, and the ground shakes when it hits. Doesn't get back up. Not dead, just lights out. Silence. I'm breathing hard. Whole clearing smells like dirt, gunpowder, and ogre spit. Then I hear it. Soft at first, then louder, chittering. I look up. Every menehune in the tree is staring down at the ogre, then at me. One climbs down slow, walks up to the ogre, kicks its head. No movement. And they lose their minds. Screaming, jumping, hugging, beating their chests. One is waving the bone knife like it won a trophy. They start dragging vines, tying the ogre's arms, climbing all over it, celebrating, like the war is over. And I'm standing there, covered in mud, holding a smoking rifle, realizing I just helped a tribe of feral forest goblins overthrow the only thing keeping them busy. One of them looks at me, tilts its head, grinning. I go, "Don't you start that look, I'm leaving." It screeches happily. That's when I knew I had made a mistake. So they're celebrating, climbing all over the ogre like it's a parade float, tying its arms with vines, smacking it with sticks just to be sure. And I'm standing there, heart slowing down, when my brain finally catches up. I look at the tree, look at the forest beyond, then at the little psychos. And it hits me. That thing, I say out loud, pointing at the ogre, isn't the threat. A dozen little heads tilt towards me. You lot are. Because here's the math. Ogre awake. They stay in the trees, busy not dying. Ogre gone. 30 feral, tool-using, meat-eating gremlins with nothing but free time and villages full of livestock run free. They don't understand the words, but they understand tone. I rub my face. Unbelievable. I gotta save the idiot. One of them hisses at me, baring little needle teeth. I pull another flash charge. Last warning, Smurfs. I toss it at the ogre's feet. Bang! Light and thunder crack through the clearing. They scatter, screaming, scrambling back up trunks and vines. A few hesitate, angry, confused. I move fast, knife out, cutting vines off the ogre's wrists, ankles. Thing's skin is like old tire rubber. Hands grab at me, little claws, tugging my jacket. One tries to bite my arm. I shove it back. Don't make this worse. Another one leaps at my face. That's when I fire. One of them drops from the tree, still. Everything freezes. The rest back up fast, eyes wide now. Not playful, not celebrating. They understand that language. I keep my rifle up, sweeping the canopy. "Back, up," I shout, pointing the rifle at random. They melt into the branches, watching, angry, but thinking. I finish cutting the last vine and step away. The ogre groans, chest rises deep, eyes twitching. I don't wait. I start walking. Not running. Running makes you pray. Just steady steps back into the jungle. Behind me, I hear the ogre shift. Rocks grinding. A confused rumble. Then a roar. Not rage. Pain. Headache. Betrayed by everything roar. The trees explode with movement as the menehune scatter higher, deeper into their platforms. I don't look back, because that's the deal now. Ogres awake. They stay busy. Villages sleep. And me, I'm never taking another job where the enemy can fit in a backpack. You couldn't pay me enough. Actually, you could, but I'm complaining the whole time.
I hate it when the company calls after midnight. Means something with big teeth. The phone buzzed on the crate beside my bed, and I just knew before I even picked it up, this wasn't going to be a strange noise in the woods job. Those go to the rookies. I get the stuff people pretend doesn't exist. "Yeah," I said, still half in a dream. "The woman on the line, same one as usual, voice like a filing cabinet. Livestock predation near Yellowstone's northern boundary. Escalating." I sat up. "Define escalating." 3 sheep, 1 mule deer. Possible missing hiker tied to the area. That woke me up proper. I swung my legs off the bed and looked at the gear locker across the room. Tracks? Reported as large and bipedal, with strides well beyond human range. I stood. Didn't even turn the light on. Dogman? I asked. That's our working conclusion. They don't say names unless they're pretty sure. The company likes maybes. Maybes mean less paperwork when things go wrong. I opened the locker. Rifle case, pistol case, field bag. All right where they should be. How long's the pattern been active? I asked. Under a week. It appears to be testing the territory. That's how it starts. First livestock, then pets, then hikers who wander off trail to take photos and never make it back. If it establishes range, she added, containment becomes complicated. Translation: kill it before someone films it. Pay? I asked. 40 now. 40 on confirmation. That's fair. I unzipped the rifle case and looked down at my .308. 10 years of this work and I still trust steel more than luck. 8 days, I told her. Sooner if it's sloppy. You leave at first light. Coordinates already sent. And Ethan, yeah? Do not let it push deeper into the park. I smirked. You worried about tourists or senators? We're worried about visibility. With that, the call was over. I packed in the dark. I don't need light anymore. Rifle over the shoulder, automatic pistol on my hip, machete on the pack, trail cams, thermals, and spare mags. I did 4 years in the Army before this. Motor pool maintenance. Longest firefight I saw was 2 sergeants arguing over a missing wrench. I got out bored and stayed bored until I learned the world had other kinds of problems. The kind that don't bleed, the kind that don't stay dead unless you make sure, the kind that don't care who you are as long as you're edible. I stepped outside just before dawn, cold air biting my lungs. The truck started on the first turn, like it knew we had work. Somewhere out there, something big had decided sheep were easy meals. I was about to explain the downside of that decision. At the time, I figured I was going after a lone predator. I didn't know it yet, but I was driving into someone else's war. I found the tracks faster than I expected. That should have been my first warning. Usually you earn signs, miles of nothing, then maybe a print if you're lucky. But this thing, it walked like it owned the forest. No attempt to hide, no backtracking, no stone hopping. Deep impressions in the mud along a game trail, each step almost perfectly in line. Predator efficiency. Long foot, narrow heel, toes ending in clawed points that bit into the soil. I crouched beside one print, laid my hand next to it. They were bigger than my spread fingers. Fresh, too. Edges still sharp. Cocky, I muttered, and followed. The trail climbed into rockier ground and ended at a shallow limestone cave tucked into a ridge. Nothing dramatic. You could walk past it and never notice. I didn't go straight in. I circled first, checked wind, listened. Forest was quiet. Not normal quiet. The creepy kind. I stepped inside slow, rifle up. The smell hit first. Wet fur. Old blood and rot layered over damp stone. The bedding was in the back. Pine boughs mashed flat, leaves, shredded bark, with bones scattered around the edges. Deer. Elk. Then I saw fabric. I felt my jaw tighten. Half a hiking backpack strap, torn, dried dark where fingers had grabbed at it. A femur lay near the wall. Human. Damn it, I breathed. I didn't stay long. Lairs make you complacent. Predators circle back. I backed out, eyes on the dark the whole time. Outside, I found another set of tracks leaving the area. Same shape, same stride. Heading downhill. It must have went for water, I said. Or a patrol. So I followed. The trail led to a river cutting through the valley floor, wide and fast from snowmelt. Tracks ended at the bank. I scanned both directions, nothing obvious on this side. I sighed. You crossed, didn't you? Most big predators do. Water scrambles scent. buys time. So I waded through, current pushing hard against my thighs, rifle held high, cold enough to ache bones. The other side was rocky, hard to read. I spread out, walking slow circles, scanning for broken grass, displaced stones, things like that. Found a sign eventually, a print in softer mud near a fallen log, but something felt off. Foot was broader, toes less clawed, heel wider. I frowned. Substrate distortion, I told myself. Different soil, same animal. So I followed. The trail ran upstream along the river bend. Broken trail, big strides, heavy weight. I eased up a rise and saw movement below through the trees, a dark shape on the bank. Huge, standing at the water's edge. I dropped to one knee and brought the rifle up, scope settling. The figure bent forward, scooping water with massive hands, shoulders like a linebacker, arms too long, hair dark and thick. Then its head turned slightly towards me. Flat face, no muzzle. My stomach dropped. That's not my target. It was a squatch, 8 feet easy. I steadied the crosshair on its chest anyway. The company paid for problems. A problem was a problem. My finger tightened on the trigger. Then the Sasquatch froze. Didn't look at me, looked directly across the river. A low sound rolled through the trees, a growl that felt like gravel grinding in my bones. I shifted the scope to the opposite bank. There it was, the dog man. Standing half in shadow, yellow eyes locked on the Sasquatch, lips peeled, shoulders high. Fur stood up along its back. The Sasquatch let out a deep, chesty bark and slammed a fist against a tree trunk. The dog man answered with a snarl that made my skin prickle. That's when it clicked. The cave, the patrol path, the river line. I wasn't hunting a roaming predator. I was standing in the middle of a territorial boundary, and both landlords had just shown up. "Oh, hell," I whispered. "This is getting good." But if they started fighting, there was no way they didn't notice the guy with the rifle, and whichever one walked away wasn't going to tolerate witnesses. I needed to be invisible, so I stayed low and edged my way up to the closest bush. I've seen monsters attack before. I've killed monsters coming at me dozens of times, but watching two of them square up like rival gang leaders at a borderline, that was new. They stood on opposite banks of the river, maybe 30 yards apart. Neither one cared about me if they knew I was there, which somehow made it worse. The Sasquatch loomed on my side, shoulders rolling, hands flexing open and closed. It wasn't making noise like people think. No screaming, no howling. Just this deep, steady rumble in its chest. A warning. Across the water, the dog man paced sideways, head low, lips peeled back. Saliva hung in strings between its teeth. Its tail, short and stiff, twitched with every step. They weren't just mad. They were familiar. This had happened before. The river wasn't just water. It was a borderline. The Sasquatch smacked a tree trunk with one hand. Crack, bark exploding off it. The dog man answered with a howl that hit like a shockwave. Then it moved. Not around. Through. It launched into the river in one explosive bound, water erupting around it as it churned forward with terrifying speed. The Sasquatch charged to meet it. They collided at the bank like two trucks. The sound wasn't a roar. It was meat hitting meat. They wrestled, the Squatch out sizing it slightly. The dogman got its jaws into the Sasquatch's shoulder first. I heard the bite from where I lay, a wet, crushing sound. The Sasquatch roared then, grabbing the dogman's neck fur with one hand and hammering its other fist into its ribs. Once, twice. A third punch snapped the dogman's head sideways. Claws raked down the Sasquatch's chest, tearing fur and skin. Dark blood streaked through the hair. The dogman tried to twist for another bite, but the Sasquatch shifted its weight and slammed a forearm across the creature's throat. Pure size, pure power. The dogman lashed out in retaliation, clawing the Squatch's forearm. The Squatch grabbed its wrist, snorted. Then it lifted. I don't know how something that big moves that fast, but it did. The Sasquatch heaved the dogman off its feet, spun it around, and hurled it back toward the river. The creature hit the water sideways with a splash like a dropped boulder. It came up snarling, but the sound had changed. Higher, angry, but edged with pain. The Sasquatch stomped to the bank and roared, beating its chest with both fists. It didn't follow. It didn't need to. The dogman backed away in the current, eyes locked on its rival, then turned and scrambled for the far bank, limping as it disappeared into the trees. Defeated. The Sasquatch stood there a moment longer, breathing hard, blood matting its fur. Then it turned its back on the river, the ultimate insult, and walked upstream, slow and heavy like a king leaving a battlefield. I realized my finger was still on the trigger. I hadn't fired a shot. Nature had handled the problem. Mostly. I watched the trees where the dogman vanished. It hadn't died. And wounded predators are the worst kind. I exhaled slow. All right, I muttered. Round 2. Crossing the river again sucked worse the second time. Cold bit deeper, at legs already tired. On the far side, finding the trail was easy. Blood was everywhere. Dark drops on stones, smears on bark where it brushed past, one back paw print dragging slightly. It wasn't running now, it was retreating, and something about that felt dangerous. I moved faster than I normally would, but not sloppy. Blood sign made it easy anyway. Dark drops every few yards, smears where it brushed rock. The Sasquatch had worked it over good, but hurt doesn't mean helpless. Hurt means mean. I crested the ridge above the cave and slowed, dropping low behind a fallen pine. From there, I could see the slope leading down to the entrance. There was movement halfway down. The dogman limped into view between the trees, maybe 60 yards out, head low, shoulder dark with matted blood. One leg didn't swing right. It hadn't seen me. It was focused on home. That cave wasn't just shelter. It was defense. One entrance, stone walls, tight angles. If it got inside, this turned into a nightmare. I settled behind the rifle, crosshairs on the center of its chest as it stepped around a boulder. I squeezed. The 308 cracked through the valley. The impact hit like a hammer. The dogman stumbled sideways, a spray of dark blood misting the air. The round punched into its ribs. I saw the jolt, heard the bark of pain, but it didn't drop. It spun toward me, and our eyes locked. That's the moment people don't understand. Predators don't look shocked. They look offended. It roared, not a wolf sound, not anything natural, and charged uphill straight at me. Fast, way too fast for something that size and that injured. I rolled to a knee, working the bolt without thinking. Second round chambered. No time for perfect 30 yards. It covered ground in huge, loping bounds, claws tearing dirt loose behind it. 20. I could see the blood pumping out with each step. 10. I saw teeth, foam, rage. I switched to point shooting and fired. The second shot hit high in the chest, snapping its torso back mid-stride but not stopping it. I dropped the rifle on its sling and drew my pistol in one motion. The dogman lunged. I fired twice into its face. The first round shattered bone above the eye. The second went in through the open mouth. The creature crashed into me anyway, momentum slamming us both to the ground. Its claws tore through my jacket but didn't find skin. Weight crushed the air out of me. Then it went still. I shoved the body off me and rolled to my knees, scanning the tree line. Forest was quiet again, but not empty. Somewhere upriver, a Sasquatch that had just won a territory fight was still out there. And now the balance had shifted again. Because I hadn't just killed a predator, I'd killed one side of a border. That was another man's problem. I'd completed my task, so I was getting paid either way. But that was enough for one day. I mentioned the squatch in my report, but I left it at that.
I'd been chasing the possessor for 3 weeks, and at this point, I was starting to take it personally. 6 towns, 2 crappy motels, 1 rental car that I am not emotionally ready to talk about, and an incident involving a church statue that ended with a pensioner hitting me with a bingo dabber later, and I'm still being humiliated. I don't even hunt regular demons anymore, just this one freeloading spirit that treats the physical world like a rental wardrobe. It can possess anything it touches. Anything. Do you know how hard that is to fight? You can't punch a chair. Well, you can, but you look stupid, and the chair usually wins. But this time, I had an upgrade. I pushed through brush on a ridge above a hiking trail, adjusting the demon detector goggles strapped to my face. They hummed softly, lenses flickering with faint symbols and a cheap-looking green HUD. I built them myself, which means they're either genius or a war crime. Text scrolled across my vision. Demonic residue, trace probable host nearby. Good enough, I muttered. Down on the trail were 4 hikers, normal, backpacks, walking poles. One guy already sunburned into a medical condition, but the goggles highlighted one thing, a floppy beige sun hat. Through the lenses, it glowed with a greasy red aura, like evil heat haze. I smiled cheekily. Oh, you sneaky little parasite. I stepped out onto the trail, and they all slowed like I was a bear that had learned to stand upright. Hi, Sunburned Guy said. Are you lost or... Take the hat off, I said. Trail Mix Lady blinked. Sorry? The hat. Off. Now. They looked at each other like I was the weird one. I just bought this, she said. It's got UV protection. So do I said, pulling my rune-etched blade. That's when the hat twitched. I saw it flare bright red. Oh, no, you don't, I started saying, but it launched right off her head. Just bowing. Like a possessed tortilla. All 4 hikers screamed and jumped back. The hat hit the ground and ran. Not rolled. Ran. The brim flapped like panicked little legs as it sprinted down the trail. What is happening? Someone yelled. Do not touch anything, I shouted, chasing after it. It smacked into a rock and burst into red smoke that shot straight into Sunburned Guy's face. He froze, then slowly turned toward me, eyes black, skin gray, and this evil grin. Ugh, I sighed. You again. He came at me swinging a hiking pole. I ducked, swept him, and slapped a silver charm on his chest. It burned. He convulsed, then coughed the spirit out in a red streak, which flew straight into Trail Mix Lady's backpack. The bag started thrashing like it owed it money. Granola bars exploded everywhere. My snacks, she screamed. Then the spirit burst back out and shrank. My goggles zoomed. A mosquito lifted into the air, glowing red. I just stared. You have got to be kidding me. The hikers started slapping themselves in blind terror. Stay still, I yelled, already running after it. Have you ever tried chasing a demon mosquito? It flies like it knows you're embarrassed. It drifted off the trail into swampy trees. I followed, tripping over a log like a professional. The goggles flashed warnings about bacteria, parasites, and large entity nearby. Then the mosquito stopped, hovered over a patch of stagnant bog water, and landed. The surface rippled. Red spread under the water like spilled ink. Bubbles rose. Something big shifted below. I stopped. No. The water bulged. My goggles updated. Host transfer complete to new host mass. Unfortunate. A bloated deer carcass floated up, legs bending wrong, eyes glowing red. I took out my flask. Okay, I said, taking a sip. Round 7. The dead deer lurched toward me through the muck. Next time, I told it, I'm hunting something simple, like a dragon. At least dragons stay in one body. The deer thing came at me like a bag of haunted soup with legs. Most people, in that moment, might charge heroically. I did not. I stepped sideways in the mud, let it lunge past, and brought my rune machete around in a clean, practiced arc. Thunk. Head off. Body dropped in the bog with a wet slap that I'm going to hear in my nightmares forever. Stay, I told the corpse. Just once. Stay. Did it? Of course not. The red glow exploded out of the neck stump. It didn't even hesitate. Shot straight into the water. No. My goggles zoomed just in time to highlight a fish darting upstream like it had an appointment. You ever try running through a bog after a demon-possessed fish? You don't run. You sort of argue with the ground while moving forward. I splashed after it, slipping, swearing, losing one boot for a full 5 seconds before I won the wrestling match. The fish vanished into a narrow channel leading into a rocky outcropping where dark water pooled beneath an overhang. A cave, of course it was. I slowed, breathing heavy, machete ready, and entered. Inside, half submerged in black water, was the biggest troll I had ever seen. 9 feet tall, even hunched over. Skin like mossy stone, snoring loud enough to ripple the surface. Great, I whispered. We've moved on to regional bosses now. Then the water near its leg rippled. A red streak flashed under the surface and sank into the troll's foot. I closed my eyes. Don't wake up. Don't wake up. Please don't wake. The troll's eyes snapped open, glowing red. It inhaled, then the cave shook as it roared. Yep, I'm toast. It swung an arm the size of a sofa at me. I dove, and rocks exploded where I'd been standing. The whole cave started coming down in chunks. I ran like an athlete straight for the exit, splashing like crazy. Behind me, thunderous footsteps, stone fists smashing walls. There was one extremely angry possessed troll trying to redecorate with my spine. I burst out of the cave into open swamp, sprinting like cardio was invented specifically to punish me. The troll barreled out a moment after me, roaring. Reaching out, I froze. I thought it was all over. Then everything went very quiet. I turned. I blinked. Sunlight streamed over the clearing. The troll stood frozen mid-step, arms outstretched inches from my head, turned to stone, solid, gray, completely unevil. You idiot, I said. Trolls turn to stone in direct sun. Basic field guide stuff that. The red glow flickered inside the stone chest, then shot out like a flare, straight up into the sky. A nearby bird jerked mid-flight, wings flapping wildly as its eyes flashed red. I just stared, hands on my knees, lungs on fire. The bird circled once overhead like it was waving, then flew off into the distance. I pointed my machete at it. Hey, come back. You don't get to be a bird. That's cheating. I stood there in swamp water, covered in mud, deer goo, and shattered dignity. I checked the goggles. Host signal, receding. Chase status, continuing. User mood, bad. Yeah, I muttered. Fairly accurate. I started walking, because that's the thing about the possessor. You don't win, you just keep showing up. But one day I'm going to catch that little body-hopping coward in something with legs too short to run. And when I do, I'm bringing him to heel. Until then, the chase continues.
My name is Ronan Kelleher, and if this ends up in the company archive, they can edit out the swearing themselves. I was sent to the Northwest Coast to update the Marrow section of the field manual. Routine behavioral documentation, they said. Easy posting. Track, observe activity, don't engage. 3 weeks later, I knew 2 of them better than most of my cousins. A bonded pair. Their territory stretched along a broken run of cliffs and reefs west of Donegal Bay. Smart. Consistent. Predictable. In the way only wild things can be when nothing's bothering them. The female surfaced first most evenings. Pale green tail, almost silver in certain light. The curious type. Would trail the boat just at the edge of visibility. The male stayed deeper, heavier build. Has this old scar across his shoulder like something had tried to harpoon him once and failed. I logged them as F Silver and M Scar. They weren't mindless killers like the old manuals claimed. They hunted seals on the turn of the tide. avoided storms, kept their distance unless provoked. Textbook apex coastal predators behavior. Until 4 nights ago, that's when they started acting like prey. I was running slow along their usual patrol line, engine low, lights off. The sea was as flat as hammered lead. I could hear every shift of water against the hull. Then I felt it. Not a sound, a vibration, like someone tapping metal somewhere deep below. Tick, 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 tick. Not natural, too spaced, too deliberate. I leaned over the rail with the scope. The pair were there, but wrong, surfacing fast, head snapping toward open ocean instead of me. The female breached half out of the water like something had nipped her tail. I shouted out loud, "Something's got you shook, girl." That's when she came straight for the boat. Not hunting, not territorial, straight for me. Every rule they'd followed for weeks gone. She stopped maybe 10 meters out, water up to her shoulders, hair plastered dark against her skin. Close enough I could see the freckles across her nose. Close enough she didn't look like a monster anymore. Just a woman in cold water, breathing hard. Then she smiled, and I nearly went over the side. You can read about Marocharman reports all day. Vocal harmonic influence, neurological interference, fancy words. Means nothing when it's happening. She sang soft broken notes, not a tune, just a feeling of warmth. Someone waiting for you where it's safe. I remember thinking just one step closer to hear it properly. Then my boot hit the rail. I'd unclipped my own safety line, and didn't even remember doing it. Her hand came out of the water, webbing, shining, reaching for me like she was pulling me out of a crowd. Then the sea detonated. Something smashed into her from below and dragged her sideways so hard the spray hit my face. I tasted salt and blood. The male. Emskar came up between us like a torpedo, teeth bared, sound ripping out of him that I felt in my ribs more than heard. He wasn't posturing. He was furious. Not at me, at her. She screamed back at him, and I swear on my mother's grave it wasn't an attack cry. It sounded like protest, like she was trying to get back to me. He bit her upper arm, not tearing, just gripping, and hauled her away from the boat. Possessive as hell. Terrified, too, because he wasn't looking at me. He was looking past me, out into the deep. That ticking came again. Louder now. Closer. Emskar made a call I've never logged before. This deep. Pulsing like a warning buoy. He shoved her under, and they both vanished. Just gone. The sea was still. I stood there shaking, head buzzing like I'd just nearly drowned. I took the scope and scanned the open Atlantic. Nothing on the surface, but under it. There was a shape in the distance. Big doesn't even begin to cover it. Not whale big. Wrong shape. This was way too long. Too still. Like something hanging in the water instead of swimming through it. Watching. The ticking stopped the moment I saw it. I went below and locked the hatch like a child hiding from thunder. So here's the part the company won't like. The female didn't try to lure me to feed. She tried to pull me away from the water, from whatever the hell was out there. Emskar wasn't being jealous. He was dragging her to safety, and if Mero's creatures that hunt sharks for sport are afraid enough to break behavior patterns, then we are not the worst thing in those waters, not even close. Nothing actually happened. I stayed below a good 15 minutes before taking another look through the scope, but that thing was no longer there. Its presence shook them, no doubt in my mind. After that night, everything about the pair changed. They abandoned the outer patrol line completely. The deep channel they used to cruise at dusk? Empty. The reef edge where they'd ambush seals on the ebb tide? Nothing but gulls and nervous water. Instead, they hugged the coast. Shallow inlets, kelp forests, rock shelves where the sea's only 6 or 7 meters deep at most, places with surge, noise, stone overhead, anywhere the open water couldn't loom behind them. They weren't hunting properly anymore either. Snatching crabs, small fish, quick, inefficient feeding like animals too wired to settle. Quote, the male stayed within arm's reach of the female at all times. If she surfaced, he surfaced. If she dove, he followed a heartbeat later. From a work standpoint, and I hate myself a bit for this, it made my job easy. Shallows mean visibility. Predictable cover, shorter tracking arcs. I could run the boat parallel to the cliffs and know they were somewhere beneath the kelp line. Log their altered routes, defensive spacing, increased surface checks, reduced vocalization. The charm behavior never happened again, not toward me, not toward passing fishing boats. It was like they'd remembered the food chain had a ceiling. One afternoon, I killed the engine and drifted near a narrow cove cut into the rock like a wound. Water clear as glass. Could see them both below, hovering under an overhang. Not resting, Marrows don't really rest like we do, but holding position. Watching the mouth of the cove like soldiers in a trench. The female glanced up at me once, no smile this time, no song, just a look. I've only seen on men before a firefight, measuring distance to cover, exits, odds. She dipped her head once and sank back under the stone lip. Scar. He never took his eyes off the deeper water beyond the cove. My final notes to the company were clinical. They always are. Post-encounter behavioral shift. Marrow pair displaced from deep water territory by unidentified large marine entity, now exhibiting coastal compression. Heightened vigilance, pair bond proximity increase, and reduced predatory assertiveness. Recommendation. All hunter vessels avoid outer shelf west of Donegal coordinates logged. Classification of region. Unstable apex zone. That's the official version. Here's the truth I didn't write. I finished early because I was afraid not of the marrows of the thing that made them act like deer that smelled a wolf on my last night. I pointed the bow south, engine steady, cliffs fading behind me. I didn't look back, but I felt it. Watching. Out there past the shelf where the sea turns black and the charts get vague, something vast and patient hanging in water too deep for sunlight. Lurks patiently, and I knew one thing for certain. Whatever rules we think monsters follow, there's always something older that doesn't follow any at all.
I've done basements full of mold spirits. I've done attics full of bone nests. I've even done that farmhouse with the pigs that weren't actually pigs. But sewers are always personal. Name's Marlowe. Municipal contracts call me a biological containment specialist. Makes me sound like a janitor at a nuclear plant. The people paying me tonight just said something's coming up through drains. That's typical in these cases. Infestations, I mean. You don't smell the problem at first. The suit filters most of it out, but there's always a taste. Metallic and sour, like licking a battery wrapped in meat. I drop into the storm tunnel ladder first, boots splashing into slow-moving black water. Headlamp on, shoulder light on. Suit integrity checks green. Bite mesh active. Rebreather humming steady. My kit's built for infestations. Short barrel carbine with frangible bio rounds. Underbarrel dispersal unit for aerosol sterilizer. Shock prod on my hip for anything that gets too close and still has nerves. 2 purge canisters on my back. Last resort stuff. Burns oxygen and everything that needs it. The council said it was rats. They always say it's rats. First one comes at me from the dark, like it's been fired from a cannon. It hits the water running, but wrong. Back legs don't sync with the front. Too many joints. Skin stretched tight and shiny. Fur falling off in strips. Eyes cloudy but glowing faint green in my lamp beam. I shoot it, center mass. Round hits. Rat bursts like overripe fruit. It doesn't die. It drags itself forward with its front claws, squealing, ribs moving under the skin like something inside it is trying to turn around. Fantastic, I mutter, and put another round through its skull. Then I hear them, not squeaking, clicking. A head pipes along the tunnel wall starts spitting them out. Dozens. Small ones, big ones, some with patches of shell instead of skin. One runs past with a leg that's clearly not a rat leg. Too thin, too many segments. They hit me in a wave. I braced and worked the carbine in short bursts. Rounds popping them open in sprays of dark fluid that hisses where it hits the water. One gets close enough to jump. I catch it mid-air with the shock prod. It spasms and drops, still trying to bite the metal. They don't flee. They don't hesitate. They're not animals anymore. They're delivery systems. For what? I don't know yet. Then it goes quiet, but the tunnel floor twitches like it's thinking about moving again. I reload, hands steady, heart's not. Nest'll be close, I say into the helmet mic, though comms don't work this deep. Habits. Makes it feel like someone else might hear this if I don't make it back. Further in, the brickwork changes. It got older. Stone-lined and wet, not from water, from growth. The walls weren't brick anymore. They're layered in pale, veined film stretched between the stone like cling wrap over something breathing. Fat insects crawl in and out of holes that open and close slowly. That's when I understand. The rats didn't start this. They're just livestock. I lift my light to the main junction chamber and see the thing that's been farming them. Rats are stuck in a mass of pale tissue fused to the sewer ceiling and walls. Some are alive. Some are half dissolved into it. Veins run from the mass into their bodies. Insects swarm over everything, crawling into mouths, eye sockets, even open skin. Feeding, changing them. Something moves in the center. A shape buried deep in the meat. An eye opens, not a rat's. A vertical pupil. A slit forms below it, and a sound comes out, a layered hum that buzzes in my teeth. Behind me, the wall splits. One of the membranes tears open and something crawls out that used to be a rat but got promoted. Long, hairless, forelimbs ending in almost hands. Skull stretched into a point, jaw opening sideways. It smelt me and screamed. More tears begin to open, more of them pulling free, dripping. I fire a sterilizer grenade straight into the center of the mass. It bursts in a cloud of burning chemical fog. The nest reacts instantly. The hum becomes a shriek that shakes dust from the ceiling. Tissue blisters, insects rain down, burning. The wall things charge. I backpedal, firing, shocking, kicking. One claws my sleeve, bite mesh holds. Another leaps and I smash it aside, point blank round through its skull. The whole chamber starts to come apart as the living structure cooks. Stone cracks, membranes burst. The water starts boiling where the chemicals hit. I ran straight for the exit. You don't stay to admire work like that. I haul myself up a maintenance ladder and shove the hatch open into cold night air, tearing off my mask. The city smells filthy, but normal filthy. I'll take it. My comm picks up again. Report, the handler says. I look back at smoke curling out of the manhole. Something small crawls out onto the pavement. A beetle, shell pulsing faintly. I crush it under my boot. Rat infestation contained, I say. Then I pause, but they weren't the source. Their response wasn't immediate. Clarify. They were being fed, I say, grown. Whatever built that nest is designed to live in runoff systems. A moment of silence. You think there's more? I look at the web of drains stretching under the town. Miles of dark, wet tunnels. I don't think, I say. I know there is. Regroup, Agent, said the handler. A full burnout is being initiated. A full burnout means flamethrowers, explosives, and possibly chemicals that make mine look like vinegar. I wasn't part of the burnout squad, but I heard they had their work cut out for them. 7 more locations, the same as the one I found. That fleshy wall was some kind of demonic entity, apparently. The rats in the sewers were being mutated by a chemical spill that got flushed away trying to cover it up. This demon saw that as a perfect opportunity to do whatever the hell it was doing. It don't really matter what it was doing. Not now they're all crisp, fried.
Thank you for listening. I hope you've been entertained. Please like, subscribe, and drop a comment. Until next time, peace.